It's time once again for the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño on today's show. We're back from Robyn's little break. We're going to catch up with Robyn about how things went with the hockey tournament, and we're going to examine a couple of Utah HC players that should be on your radar this season, but I'm willing to bet are not right now.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And back on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño. Robyn, you have a little bit of a different look, a little different, little fashion going on there. What are we seeing here? What are we looking at?
Oh yeah, I'm just coming back from my my tournament in Minnesota. Played about 4 games and had a fun time. It was a really good time. I think we played like 120 other players and freaking we all had a great time. Made some new friends, Tom, and just a magical experience. I was glad I was able to head on over there and for a few days.
That's fantastic. So first of all, welcome back. Second of all, I saw that you also had, is that a coaster on your desk? What is that?
No, it's so I won in my first game played for Player of the Game puck. So I was voted Player of the Game by for my team in the game won by the other team. So
like a farmer in the pasture, you are outstanding in your field. Yes. No, that's very cool. That's very cool. So if you're listening and you're not watching on the YouTube, if you want to see what we're talking about, don't forget we are also on YouTube, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. And we do appreciate you making us your first listen when it comes to the Utah Hockey Club. I feel like, Robyn, maybe like this is your Price is Right modeling move here. I feel like everything you're just kind of like, oh yes, take a look here. Oh yes, get my good side. Now get my other good side. Yes, I like it.
All I need is to be wearing my one of my jerseys. Obviously, again, if you're watching on YouTube, I replaced my my old one with my new one up on the wall. One of the new ones up on the wall, and I have a darker one of that, and my home jersey that. I could be wearing right now, but I decided to go with the T-shirt for now, and maybe I'll show off the dark jersey later.
Well, I love to see the growth of the game. I love to see, and I mean the smile as you were telling me about everything from the weekend was fantastic. So even though you didn't come home, as you say, with a medal, it was still awesome to hear the stories, and I can tell you had a blast. So that's what really matters.
Hey, very few people can say they got a chance to skate in a tournament on the 5th floor of a shopping center where the practice facility for an NHL team is. So,
I mean, to be fair, the Utah Hockey Club's practice facility is going to be in what was a mall, right? So, but not on the 5th floor.
No, not on the 5th floor with a giant window overlooking downtown.
That must have been so awesome. Especially for games at like sunset and that time of day.
Oh, it was really cool. I made the joke, Tom. I made a funny joke because when the sunset was hitting and the sun was creeping through the glass, and kind of created that casting look on the ice. I'm like, I hate to say it, but yeah, Arizona could never. Arizona could never. It's way too hot in Arizona for that to even be a remote possibility.
I suppose you could do it in the quote unquote winter, and both you and I have lived extensively in Arizona. So, I mean, you put that in air quotes, winter. But yeah, you probably do it then. But I mean, you certainly can do it.
You would
do it in July and August.
You'd need to put a lot of money into it.
Yes, you absolutely would need to. Although the sunsets are spectacular in Arizona. Spectacular. That is one of the things I miss about being in Tucson, are the sunsets.
I can only imagine what that would look like if you had a window like that overlooking, like say in Tucson. If you had it in Tucson, in downtown Tucson, and that window faced let's say northwest, kind of adjacent, or just somewhere face out in a direction in which you can actually see the true sunset that Tucson provide. Arizona sunsets are great, but Tucson sunsets are a whole nother
Yes.
But
We sound like the Board of Tourism for Tucson. Come visit Tucson, but
no, you're right. No, but this was still cool though to see that. Like St. Paul was fantastic, Tom. Those that are also following me on social media know I got a chance to take a picture with the Herb Brooks statue.
Did you go across the street to see the peanut statues?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Guys, Tom was telling me about this off the air, like when I was originally telling him about him, and he told me, you got to check those out, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, I will. I ended up walking into the building, kind of like the landmark center, whatever it's called, like right next, like that kind of leads right into. So I got a chance to do a lot of walking down St. Paul.
Good.
Had lunch at the River one time, and it was so.
Well, now you have me ready to drop the puck. I'm ready to go on anything and everything. I haven't played in a while, so I'm just you make me itch to get back on the ice. Period.
I love this sport so much, and this tournament made me really excited for hockey season to come back. Like now I'm even more excited, not just for my own season, for playing, but just excited for hockey season as a whole. We're about now a month away from Utah Hockey Club action for the preseason to start. It's less than a month, really. We're well less than a month, just a couple of weeks at this point now.
Yeah, and I'm honestly pumped to see what they have for learn to play stuff for not only for kids but for adults, to be able to get more people into the game and grow the game. And I mean, it's going to be an awful lot of fun if you are interested. And whenever the opportunities come up, we will definitely tell you about them. Mm-hmm. But boy, if you've never played, if you haven't skated, maybe even don't learn to skate, I mean, it's pretty cool. It sets you apart a little bit. It's something unique. Not everybody can do, and it's a pretty neat feeling to be out there gliding around.
100%. I recommend giving it a shot to anyone who's even thought about it. Again, I've thought about it for so many years, but just did not have the means to do it. And then I just somehow was granted the opportunity when I moved up to Phoenix from Tucson, and I've been hooked ever since. I'm like, give me more hockey. I just want to keep playing, and I'm in love with the sport. I want to see that for a lot of people who are remotely interested, and they just kind of fall in love with it. But yeah, like I said, I just can't wait, Tom, for the season now to start. I really would just kind of made me amped to kind of get a chance to see it all and see all the things that happen. If you want to kind of take a look at everything else that I did too, like I said, you can follow me on social media. I posted a couple things on my my personal X profile at Robyn_Leonio. Kind of see some of the things I did, and kind of where I went, and how I did during the games. Just kind of maybe even see my jerseys other than the one I have on my wall. If you want to see, if you're listening, you can just go and go to my X and see both of them, because I have both of them posted, I believe. So just all stuff like that. But I want to get to, Tom, kind of move away from that really quick, kind of just wrap up. Because I want to say, while I was gone, we had a couple episodes go out. We pre-recorded talking about rivalries, right? And there was some good interaction. A lot of people had, voiced their thoughts of how those what they really thought is going to be Utah's #1 rival. There were a couple that said it's really only going to happen, truly when they reach the playoffs and whoever that first playoff match is going to be. But from a poll I put out on YouTube, Tom, I put out one that said, who do you think will be Utah HC's #1 rival? 65% of you, so a pretty high amount, voted that the Colorado Avalanche is going to be the #1 rival. And I think you and I, Tom, kind of made that agreement during those two episodes. So like the drawbacks are very few and far between, and it seems like that's what's going to end up being the case, especially since they're two Rocky Mountain teams. And they're just right next to each other, among the northern of the two four corner states, and it's they're gonna be battling.
Well, and the thing is, too, Colorado's better.
Yes,
it gives you that little brother syndrome a little bit. And it really gives you something to aspire to. They won a Stanley Cup recently, not last year, but recently. They still have some pretty big names that are important and guys that'll be there going forward. Again, we talk about Nathan MacKinnon, who at times was the most dominant player in the league last year. And I don't think you can argue that. When he was on, I think he was the most dominant guy out there. And Cal McCarr. I really believe that the Avalanche could experience a resurgence this season, and that could make them an even more important rival for Utah. But here's the thing, you're not measuring yourself now. When you take steps forward, you're not measuring yourself anymore against separation from the bottom, but now you're measuring yourself against separation from the top.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
how you know you're changing.
I will also add this, Tom. It's something that like I'm learning more as I'm covering this Utah team and kind of get to know what the Utah sports scene looks like. And this will be the last kind of I'll talk about it before we kind of go on to talk about for the rest of this show. But some of the comments I received, they talked about, for example, so I got one comment on YouTube from Marty Phelps where he said old school hockey fans in Utah have a huge disdain for Dallas. Which is an interesting one. He said back in the old CHL days, Utah's first championship was against the old Dallas Blackhawks in 1974, 1975. But a lot of other, and then there's also other ones where it said Colorado will have a natural rivalry where both the Jazz and our RSL, so Real Salt Lake, seem to have some sort of rivalry with the Colorado counterparts. And another addition, some said also back in the old IHL, the Salt Lake Golden Eagles' number one rival was the Colorado Tangiers. So
that's pretty good. I mean, there was with the IHL, there are a lot of rivalries that came out of that too. And it's interesting because Vegas had a little IHL history in there as well. And I know that a lot of folks who might be watching, especially if we have any East Coast fans, might not realize how rich the hockey history is in the West. Mm-hmm. But even, Salt Lake's got a very rich hockey history here, especially for the longtime fans. And they definitely have their ideas. Hey, Dallas is another good team to have a rivalry with. I'll tell you that right off the bat. Dallas is another one of those teams above you that is just they're good up and down the lineup.
I'm glad someone mentioned Dallas too. Because like, you know what? I actually didn't really think too much about Dallas. And you realize that a lot of people just hate Dallas in general. Like a lot of sports people just hate Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
Sports city.
As don't a like sports Cowboys, city. Don't like the Mavericks,
as whatever it might be. So it makes sense. But I'm glad you guys liked that content and kind of were interacting and helping us understand that scene and really kind of taking a look at how easy it might be for a rivalry to actually come. It might literally come out right off the gate because the fans kind of already bought in sort of way. And again, as we mentioned, Tom, on the 2 episodes, it still has to be mutual. So the other team still also has to hate you. But again, it'll be interesting to see exactly how it turns out. But I'm glad we had that conversation, and I'm glad we had the interaction with it. But let's keep the ball rolling here, or either puck moving, as we should say on a hockey podcast. Let's keep the puck moving here, Tom. And let's talk about what we set up this show for. Let's take a look at 2 Utah Hockey Club players that should be on your radar this season. We'll do that right after this. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Picks, and that makes getting tickets of your favorite live events even easier. Game Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time's 50% off Labor Day offer for Diamondbacks versus Dodgers is also coming up. You can go ahead and get more information about that exclusively on Game Time. With availability and supply. Again, get a really, really low price. You can send 50% off tickets for Diamondbacks versus Dodgers. You can open up the Game Time app, take a look at that. You get those views, view time, those seat views. Take a look at what things look like on that one. Plus, they're all-in pricing. You can click that feature, and you get your total upfront so you don't have to really see what the fees are going to be. They will already be lumped into it. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Let's keep things going. Locked on Utah Hockey Club, Robyn Leonio and Tom Callahan. Let's get to Tom. Let's take a look at now two players who could really well be, might not be on your radar now, but should be on your radar heading into this inaugural season for the Utah Hockey Club. And Tom, I'll let you kick things off on this one.
You know what? I think that it's been done to death a little bit, Robyn, of the big names that are coming in, right? Whether it's players who are staying on the roster, new players to the roster. I think it's very easy to beat that horse. And I believe that, we've done it too, because it is important to talk about the Sergachevs of the world coming in and the impact they could have and what they could potentially bring to the table. And so what's nice about doing this, talking about the off the radar players, is I feel like the focus is for the Utah fans firmly there as far as the folks who might be new to the game. And that's totally fair. I'm fine with that. And that's where you're going to start to learn who are the big names first. But now if we're going to jump up the level of analysis a little bit here, now we're going to kind of get into the weeds. And I think that this is where we start to look at individual contributions that might not show up on a score sheet, that you won't necessarily see exactly what that player does or what makes that player so valuable. But that's where we come in, and we want to help folks, kind of have an understanding of that. And my player that I want to talk about coming in is Ian Cole. When I saw Cole as a guy coming in, I thought this is really interesting to me. 35, big-time NHL veteran, has been around for a while, was originally a first-round draft pick all the way back in 2007. 6'1", 225, obviously at 35, not going to be as fast as he used to be, but has a definite role to play on this team. And we were talking off the air about depth charts a little bit and how we've kind of seen the scrambling of the defense. And I disagree with almost every depth chart I've seen so far. Yeah. Cole, to me, coming in as a 5'6" guy. Now, what does that mean? It means there are three defensive pairs, and you usually refer to them by numbers. 1, 2 is your top pair. 3, 4 is your middle pair, and then the 5'6" pair. When we talk about getting, I'd like to get a 5'6" defenseman, you're not talking about a guy who's 5'6" tall. You're talking about someone who plays on that third pair. Cole is that 5'6" defenseman for the Utah Hockey Club in a veteran role, a guy who's not going to try to do too much. The reason he's still playing at 35 in the NHL is because he plays within himself. And I think that he's a very, very good veteran presence. $3.1 million is a good contract to hand out from the standpoint of Utah had a little bit of money to play with anyway. And I think that you bring this guy in because you value his leadership and his mentorship abilities for that defensive room that is new, that is coming together. He's going to be the player you'll see at practice talking to some of the young guys. He's going to be the player in the room that will be talking to the defensive leaders. He will be leading conversations, and sometimes those difficult conversations that you want to be able to have. And so here's the other encouraging thing for me with Cole is when I look at what he was doing last year, his ice time was actually pretty good. He was munching the equivalent of 3-4 pair minutes. So he's done a lot, provided a lot over the course of his career, finished last year with Vancouver, played 78 games. He's been durable. I look at the last couple of seasons for him, 78, 78, 75. So I don't see a physical question there. He's right around 1,200 minutes a season the last 2 years. And a lot of his stats are good. His goals for is 56.4 last year. His dangerous Fenwick for was even a 54, which is honestly not bad. You're looking at some of these. I mean, there's certainly some things. Goals per 60 is even better than average at 0.1, which on a 5-6 pair, that's great. Fantastic. Points per 60, 0.55. So, and we're getting into the advanced stats a little bit here, but there are a lot of little things to like about Cole. There's a lot of little things to like about the tools he can bring and the tools he can teach. And here's the other thing. In a limited role, if there's an injury, I have zero problem elevating him to the 3-4. I have zero problem seeing him out there on the penalty kill. I think he is a guy who's going to provide a lot of depth minutes. He's going to be able to eat those. And as long as he stays physically healthy, which indications are he will be able to do, Robyn, I like Ian Cole to be a very quiet but very impactful defenseman.
And I'm glad you mentioned Cole, because I really think that that the acquisition of Ian Cole was definitely, I mean, it was mentioned, and we certainly talked about it on this show, because we thought it was a pretty, we thought it was a pretty decent addition, but it was still, in the terms of the overarching look at things, overshadowed by Sergachev and Moreno, because those were big trades over that draft, the draft days, and they're like, oh my God, Utah are really trying to make a swing and get better. But signing a guy like Ian Cole right out of the gate in free agency was a huge addition, especially knowing what he's capable of and knowing what he can, the impact that he make on defense, adding to the defense that already exists now in Utah, from the what was already there, plus the re-signings from the last Arizona year, getting Jersey back, getting all those up, and Valimaki and whatever back, and it really shows that, oh wow, this is an incredibly strong blue line. Adding all that together, and it shows that Ian Cole's no slouch. They didn't just add him just to fill the defense. They added him because he's going to make an impact to that defense.
And just and again, I'm looking back at the last couple of years. Last year with Vancouver, a team that made a much deeper run than I think a lot of people thought they would, but was a better team than that. And he's part of the reason. 1841, 22-23 with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 19-23 time on ice. Carolina Hurricanes, 21-22, 17-09 time on ice. Those totals are what he was doing in his late 20s, early 30s. So I think he's healthy. He's in good shape. And he's played on so many good winning teams. You go back and you look, came through St. Louis, then went to Pittsburgh from 2014 to 2018. So big part of that team, spent a year with the Blue Jackets, and then was on to the Avalanche for 3 seasons. And it has bounced around a little bit the last couple of years. But when you look at the teams he's gone to after leaving Colorado in 2021, Minnesota for a year, plus 21 there in 52 games. And he goes to Carolina for a year. Again, he is the guy the teams are bringing in, then Tampa, then Vancouver. He's the guy the teams are bringing in on these one-year deals to come in and solidify a defense that they know needs an anchor. And that is what Ian Cole can be, he's not a top pair defenseman anymore, and that's fine. He needs to be not only the physical anchor for this team, but really the spiritual anchor of the defense, and take some of that weight off some of the other players. You don't want your Sergachevs of the world or your Marinos of the world or your Jerseys of the world to have to come in and worry about a leadership role. Mm-hmm. Let them develop their game, get comfortable, find themselves, and do their thing.
Yep, and that's certainly an impact to make. And it really shows that, someone like, if you take a look at where Utah is, you certainly would love to have a guy like Ian Cole as your 5-6 guy.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense.
Couple of Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh, doesn't hurt. And then, as I say, was there with the runs, for, the deep runs in the playoffs of a Colorado, of a Carolina, Tampa. And again, with Vancouver, he really just has the capability of being an impact player. So I really hope that, Cole is able to have that kind of year, to stay healthy, to just be a lot of what this team needs. And look, Father Time is undefeated. Eventually he catches up with everybody. I just hope for Ian Cole and for the Utah Hockey Club, this is not the year.
Certainly. Well, we're going to keep talking about this the players that from on Utah Hockey Club that weren't nice, might necessarily weren't on your radar before, but they definitely should be. Ian Cole, we mentioned, is one of them. Who's another? We'll get to that right after this. So let's keep things going. Robyn Leano and Tom Callahan on Locked On Utah Hockey Club. Tom, we're talking players that we should keep an eye out for. Make sure that are on your radar this coming season that might have not been on your radar before. Now it's time to take a look, Tom. I'm like, all right, a lot of these players, we know who they are. We know the impact they're going to make because the majority of them, a huge majority of them, were members of the last year's Arizona Coyotes, and people were like, okay, we kind of know what impact they're going to make on a team. I want to add add a player here, and it seems like another easy one to add a player that was added this offseason, which kind of makes sense, right? Because you don't know what they're going to look like for this team specifically. And say this, we talked about, and I kind of set things up for it. We talked about the importance of a checking line forward and getting those kind of players who are able to force those turnovers, get those hits, get those takeaways. And as much as we've touted Liam O'Brien, and he's not the only guy, right? Like, everyone loves Spicy Tuna, and people are going to piece this, oh, Spicy Tuna, because he's awesome. He is. But again, what's cool, though, is he's not the only one that's going to make an impact like that. And that's why I want to bring up the next guy who was that person. He was a checking line forward, made a significant amount of hits. And I'm still going to put out a stat line before I put out this player's name. 80 in, let's see, where was this hit? 83 hits and 36 takeaways. I'm talking about Kevin Stenlund.
Okay.
He has that Stanley Cup now from 23-24 with Florida.
Right.
So he's got that experience. And did he make an impact much of the previous years though? I'm looking at, let's see, he played with 54 games. Was it 54 games with Winnipeg last year? Kind of didn't play a whole lot. He was only at that point. But also 55 blocks too. We're talking about a forward, a center who had 55 blocks last year, 28 blocks in the previous year, and then previous years before that with Columbus kind of was not much of an impact, but something clicked with the Florida team in 23-24 that he really made that kind of an impact as a checking line forward. We're like third or fourth line center to kind of get in there and get your body in the way and kind of force a turnover to kind of set things up back in the other zone. You really need a player that does that.
Yes, and one of the things I think that we're going to see from a player, or at least I hope we see from a player like Stenlund, is to come in, be a presence, whether it's through throwing the body, through winning the board battles, blocking shots. His is not to score 30 goals. That's not. Now, look, if that happens, I'm not going to complain. Don't get me wrong, but you're setting the wrong bar if you're looking at points with Stenlund. And I think his value to a team, it takes a village to win a Stanley Cup. And there's only one puck. Only so many guys can play the scoring role, but you need grit, you need determination. And the other thing too, there is something, even though, look, the numbers aren't the best on Stenlund as far as everything you're looking at when it comes to what he did. But what I like is that he's been trending up his entire career. He's 27, and he's a guy who I think can come in now and find maybe a home on the fourth line with Utah if he's willing to come in and work hard. And look, we all know what the blueprint is for this team, right? It's be big, be physical, work hard.
Yep.
And I think he has the ability, if he's willing to put on the hard hat and bring the lunch pail, go to work and do these things, he can be that guy. And I really hope he does. I think that's a big one. He's 51.4 on faceoffs, which, as I talked about, it was the last thing. It wasn't a throwaway, folks. When Robyn asked me, hey, anything else you want to see improve? Yeah, faceoffs. You can't be second to last in the league in faceoffs. That is not going to win you games going forward. So
No,
if he's
absolutely
better in
not.
the circle, let him go.
Yeah, definitely get focused on that. Get those and again, and this is something I was talking to Tom off the air about. This is mainly more about me personally, but it's like you don't even have to win a face-off cleanly. Just get in there and just do a little bit of damage, enough that they can't win it cleanly.
Right. And that's it. I mean, sometimes your job is simply to tie up the other center. Your wingers have to come in, help you win the battle. But again, this is, to me, Stenlund succeeds through effort.
Yep.
He will succeed through, and now experience, having been through that run and really seeing what it takes. I don't think you can ever have enough players who know what it takes to win a Stanley Cup, because it is the hardest thing to do in sports.
Yeah. Look, Stenlund is 27 years old. He is kind of like right there for a forward. And at that prime, within the next couple of year window, see where he can get. He's kind of around where maybe his ceiling is going to be, but maybe he's even going to get better. Again, this season with Florida was a massive jump ahead from his previous seasons with Winnipeg and Columbus.
Yeah.
So and if he can kind of take from what he learned in Florida and continue to build on that, he is going to make a pretty decent impact with Utah to be as that, that guy kind of to be like a second Liam O'Brien.
Yeah, and you know what? That would be fantastic. I don't know. And last year really was his first year as a full-time NHLer. 81 out of the 82 games he was able to play. 15 points, that was a career high. 11 goals, that was a career high. If you get 20 to 25 points out of Stenlund, that's fantastic. Yeah. Honestly, that's an incredible season, especially at 12 and a half minutes of ice a night. Here's the crazy thing, Robyn. Out of those 11 goals, 3 were game winners.
I love that. I love that.
That's a pretty neat little stat right there. So timely scoring, 25%, a little more, 27.5% of the goals scored were game winners. So
yeah. And again, I'm gonna bring this stat line up again too. You'd love to have a center who also can play defense, right? Because your center is essentially your third defenseman. It's your third forward, yes, but it's also your third defenseman on the ice. They got to be two-way, and those 55 blocks, that really shows that he's willing to put his body out there to take away those lanes, and just like, nope, you're not scoring on me.
Yep, coaches sometimes they need to have a line that they could put over the wall when everything's going wrong, when things just seem to be careening out of control, that they have a shot at resetting the balance of the hockey game and moving forward from there. And if Stenlund can be a part of a line like that, I think that's a huge contribution.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're running out of time here, but I want to ask you, Tom. And again, we can't really go into much explanation, but very very quickly, do you have any honorable mentions out of the two players we didn't? So out of the two players we talked about, what other honorable mentions is there that?
I think, kind of looking through here, I mean, if I'm going to say, hey, I really need to see something out of XYZ guy this year, I always like to make my Shea Weber joke, but you know what? I'm kind of interested in the Michael Kesselring, Juuso Valimaki. You guys will notice I'm pretty focused on defense and goaltending, but between those two, similar age players, I know one's a lefty, one's a righty, but I'm kind of curious to see who's going to make the big step forward. I think they're both going to take steps forward this season, but I'm really curious because I think we know what we have with Sergachev, with Durzi, with Marino. And now, I believe I know what Cole's going to be. So really, between Valimaki and Kesselring, there is really the ability, I think, to kind of, especially with Valimaki, there is a chance to really take a big step forward and become an even more dangerous player in this lineup. They're both young. They're both 2 more years away now. In 2 seasons, Valimaki's UFA and Kesselring will be RFA. So I don't know. I mean, that's the other thing too. These guys are playing for not only their year this year in their personal and the team stats, but it's coming up soon where they need to show the development if they want to sign that next big contract. That's going to be real important this year. You got to take that next step so that by 25-26, the following season, your contract year, you're firing on all cylinders and you look like the guy that Utah Hockey Club can't live without.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to keep keep going more, because there are a lot of players who can definitely make an impact, right? There are a lot of players who should be on your radar but aren't right now. But those were some just big ones, someone that I feel like that we really think has a decent chance of making an impact of X, Y, or Z, or whatever it might be. It's going to be interesting. Like, I can't wait for hockey season. Like I said, Tom, these guys are only going to get better, and for once, actually being able to talk about the hockey and not any other drama is certainly be fun. Sorry, Arizona.
It's refreshing. I admit
it really is, and I think I feel good. I feel really good about this Utah team, and they're going to add that competitiveness. And as we mentioned, is this team going to be good enough to make the playoffs? Probably not, but they're still going to have some really entertaining games based on how everyone is improving and how it's just getting better. The impact players, the not on the radar, are still impact players.
Right.
So they're going to be really cool. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's just the joy of going to a new place, the excitement of it's almost like being a kid again. It's like joining your Pee Wee team for the first time. It's walking in that locker room and you've got some friends on your team, but there's some new guys and you're in a new place. There's some buzz. There's some excitement. The fans are buzzing out on the street and around the building understandably, Arizona fans were sad at the end of last year. They knew that team was going away. And so it's a different vibe and a chance to push the reset button.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly love to keep talking more, but we're out of time on this episode of Locked On Utah Hockey Club. If you guys liked what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, and subscribe if you've yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube. So be sure to hit the subscribe button there and the notification bell so you get notified every time a new episode drops. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are on X, Instagram, and Threads at LO_NHL Utah. Also on TikTok at LO_Utah Hockey. I am personally at Robyn with a Y _LEANO, and Tom Callahan is at Callahan on Air. Interact with us, ask a question. We might answer right back on a future episode of the show. Or you can also join our Insider Text Club, and we can interact with us there one-on-one, and you get a little bit more priority access to those kinds of questions, and we keep for our mailbags that we'll do, and do a lot more there. Exclusive content will be coming out once we get around that season start time, where we get those game notes and such. So you'll definitely want to be a member of the Text Club. If you want to join, send a text to 801-760-9033. Once again, 801-760-9033. We'll send you a link to get started. You get a 14-day free trial to sign up, and you'll get to be able to. And if you like what you get from that, you can stick around. Obviously, you can decide not to stick around, but we really hope you guys do, because we want hockey. We want being a Utah Hockey Club fan really fun. That's what we're trying to provide for you guys. We're trying to make it really good. And even for those new hockey fans, if you have never followed NHL hockey before and now is your time, this is the place for you guys to listen. But once again, thanks everyone. Thanks again, once again, for listening to this episode and this show of Locked On Utah Hockey Club. And we'll see you guys next time.